A lot of what I do here at Strength Running is designed to help you become a better runner. That's what I want. I want you to be a faster runner, a less injured runner, a more capable runner. So most of my content is really about how to make you a faster runner. But today I want to talk about how you can optimize a race, whether that's a virtual race or an official race or a time trial, and run your fastest if that race is, say, tomorrow. So the training side of things is really not going to be discussed in this video. Yes, the big things are the most important. Your overall weekly mileage, the workouts that you're doing, the recovery and sleep that you're getting, how consistent you are with long runs. This is all the absolute number one most important part of becoming a faster runner is the training. You have to do the work. But what if the time trial or race is tomorrow? What do you do? How can you optimize your performance? I want to give you 7 ways that you can engineer the fastest time possible if your race is coming up in just a day. And we're going to be talking about things that you can do the day before, the morning of, and then also during the race itself. Let's get started. All right, let's start with the day before. The day before your time trial, it's a great idea to go for a short, easy run and then do a couple strides, ideally 4 to 6 strides. And then let's take an ice bath. Now, why are we doing this? The strides in the ice bath are really important. That's because on race day, when you want to run really fast, it's good to have a certain amount of muscle tension. Just like when we talk about strength training and how that work helps you use your muscles and legs and connective tissues more like pogo sticks. You are bouncing along with a very springy stride. Strides are going to help give you a little bit more muscle tension so that you have a little bit more spring in your step the next day. If you've ever used a strength running training plan, you'll see that I put in strides almost always the day before a faster workout for this exact reason. Now, an ice bath will also help you increase muscle tension in your legs. Now, I do think these tips here are better for the slightly more advanced runner who can really take advantage of this small improvement in how you feel the next day. But nonetheless, I think it's a good habit to get into. Do a short, easy run, do 4 to 6 strides, take an ice bath the next, later that night, and your legs are gonna feel responsive, springy, and ready to run fast on race day. Now, before the race, let's have some performance-enhancing drugs. The legal kind, of course, caffeine. Caffeine is your best, most effective, legal performance-enhancing drug that's out there. And I think most of us are probably using caffeine before our big workouts and races because the science is undoubtedly clear on this. It does help you run faster. When you are fully caffeinated, whether that's coffee or a caffeine pill or some other form of caffeine that's your personal preference, caffeine can really help you improve your performance by reducing your perceived amount of pain that you're experiencing. So you just feel like you're not in as much race-related discomfort. That's a great thing when you're running really, really hard. Studies have also shown that your muscles are actually able to produce more power. They are able to contract more forcefully when you're fully caffeinated. And this is done with electrodes on the skin. So it's not like there's a placebo effect of you contracting your muscles more strongly after you've had a cup of coffee. Now, try to have your coffee or however you're taking your caffeine about an hour or 2 before the race. And if you're someone who never has any caffeine, this is certainly something that you want to get used to before the race. You don't want to get all jacked up on coffee for the first time ever and then go stand on the starting line. You're probably going to be too wired. Your intensity level is going to be too high, and you don't know what that caffeine might do to you. Let's not try anything new on race day. But if you're someone who drinks coffee but has never used it a little bit more strategically before a race, it can be a really great performance enhancing beverage to have. Cup of coffee about an hour or 2 before the race, get fully caffeinated, and particularly for shorter races, I think it is a wonderful way to prioritize your performance and race fast. All right, you're out there on the course and it's windy. What do you do? Well, one of the best things to do is to draft behind bigger runners. Find someone who's bigger than you, taller than you, takes up more space, but is running the same pace, and draft behind them. These kinds of race strategies and tactics I learned as a cross-country runner when we were in high school. You know, there was a lot of pack running where we would run as a team, or you would get in a group of 3 or 4 or 5 people, and you'd all be running a very similar pace. And depending on where you are in that pack of people, you can be much more exposed to the elements. So if it's a very, very windy day, maybe you're running along the water, if there's a lake or the ocean nearby, it can be quite windy. And drafting behind others is a great way to reduce that wind. It's great for conserving energy, but it's also great mentally, because if you are running into the wind, or if there's a strong crosswind that's just slamming into you, that is going to make you more mentally fatigued. And the more tired you get up here, the less space you're going to have to dig down deep and give that race your all. But what happens if it's actually not windy, but it's just really hot outside and the sun is out and you're just getting baked in the sun? I remember this happens all the time in the spring because we're so used to training in the winter. The sun isn't very strong, the temperatures are cool. And then all of a sudden we run our first hot race of the spring and we melt. Let's just try to run in the shade. Now, sometimes this is a lot easier said than done, but I'm often amazed when I go and watch races and even run races. If there are 2 options of sun and shade down a straight road, the clear choice is the shade. You're going to conserve heat. You are going to be better able to dissipate heat from your own body. That's going to keep you cooler. And especially in short races, like let's say the 5K, the risk of any kind of heat illness is higher because the intensity level of the race is so much higher. So if you can get in the shade, it will definitely help. All right, our 5th tip to race fast during your next time trial or race is to actually wear racing shoes. I'm always a little surprised when I see how many runners don't have a pair of shoes that is reserved for racing. Now, we do this for a couple different reasons. Number 1, it gives you a psychological edge. When you put on your racing shoes, it's kind of like putting on the suit and tie, going to that interview. You know that you're dressed for business and you have to perform. Same thing when you put on your racing flats or your track spikes or whatever shoes that you prefer to race in. But usually these shoes are a little bit lighter. They're a little bit more responsive. They have more ground feel. You're a little bit closer to the ground. And because of how light they are, because of the properties and function of the shoe, they help you race faster. So if you're not someone who runs in racers, have a pair of shoes that is reserved specifically for racing and maybe some of your faster workouts. It's going to put you in a great mental position, and it's also going to take a little bit of weight off your feet so that you can race faster. Now, a similar piece of advice that I have for you is to race lighter. Now, part of this is your shoes. Your racing shoes are going to reduce the weight that you're carrying around, but let's also wear the least amount of clothing that we have to during the race. You know, if it's 40 degrees, I'm gonna wear a singlet and shorts. I don't need any more clothing than that. Maybe if it's a marathon, a long race like that, I might wear some extra clothes that I could take off. But I'm always thinking about carrying around as little weight as I can. The racing shoes are gonna help. Not wearing excess clothing is gonna help. I am certainly not gonna run with a phone and a carrying case and earbuds in my ears and jewelry and all this other stuff that is simply going to weigh me down, that is going to distract me, and it won't give me the space I need to really focus on the task at hand. So if you can, cut some weight down off your body. Your clothes, your jewelry, some of your technology, we don't need it during a race. And that's gonna help you run a little bit faster because you're just not carrying around as much weight. Okay, tip number 7 is run the tangents. This is something that blows me away when I see how many runners run the long way around a turn during a race. Cut that turn, run the tangent. The shortest path around a turn, cut it, because that's actually how the race is measured. Every USA Track and Field certified race course is measured through a certain methodology. They have a certain very specific way of measuring race courses. And they do not go the long way around any turn in a race. They cut the corners and they hug the turn as closely as they can. That's how the course is measured. So if you run a race and you find out that your GPS watch says that, your half marathon was 13.4 miles, the race wasn't long, your watch just wasn't accurate, and you probably just didn't run all the tangents as well as you could. Now, because this is how races, at least certified races, the only races that technically count, because this is how they're measured, you have to be really careful to abide by this rule. So if there's a long curving road, you actually should just run straight down the middle of it and stay in the middle so that you are not running any curves yourself, because that is simply extra distance that's going to add to your overall finishing time. Wait a minute. I know I said 7. We're going to do a bonus one. I have tip number 8 for you, and this is during the race itself. I want you to be more mentally tough by using a mantra. Now, there's hundreds of mantras out there that you could choose from. Some are words, some are phrases, some are sentences. Whatever works for you is what works for you. And a big part of that is simply experimenting with a lot of different mantras. In longer races, I like to tell myself to relax. I don't want to get too anxious too soon. But in shorter races, I like to be a little bit more aggressive and tell myself to just go, go, go. I like to ask myself, maybe a half mile from the finish, you have a decision to make. What are you going to do? So I'm always thinking, what are you going to do? Are you going to give up or are you not going to give up? And the self-talk that we have in our head between ourselves is such a good indicator of how well you're going to do in the race. Because if you are down on yourself, if you're constantly having negative thoughts, if you're counting down the meters or the miles to the end of that race, then you're not being as psychologically productive as you possibly could be. So find a mantra, use a mantra, practice it in training, and you're going to become a lot faster runner because you're going to be more focused and more mentally tough in your next race. So there we have it, guys. 8 different ways to optimize your performance in a race or a time trial that aren't all about the training. Let's do the training first, but if you've already done that, hopefully, then these tips and strategies and tactics will help you better prepare, better race during the race, and better put yourself in a good mental position so that you can get as much out of the performance as possible. Now, what else have I missed? I would love to hear your thoughts on how you optimize a really hard maximum effort. Whether that's a virtual race, a time trial, or an official race, it doesn't really matter. But how do you get in the right frame of mind, optimize your physical self and your performance so you can run at your best? Leave a comment under this video. I'd be really curious to hear from you.